in the second paragraph, he says, "It is a most extraordinary thing that I never read a patent medicine advertisement without being impelled to the conclusion that I am suffering from the particular disease therein dealt with in its most virulent form. The diagnosis seems in every case to correspond exactly with all the sensations that I have ever felt." He then generalizes his experience and by saying that it is a most extraordinary thing, it is a very unusual thing for him that whenever he read any patent medicine advertisement, he didn't leave it without concluding that he was suffering from all of the diseases particularly discussed in that advertisement or in that circular. And even the most problematic thing is that he felt that all of the symptoms were present in him, all of the symptoms of that disease were present in him, inside him, in his body, in their most virulent form. A virulent form means that the most harmful, the most worst kind of the most worst kind of form they were present in his body. The diagnosis seems in every case to correspond exactly with all the sensations that I have ever felt. And he says that whatever diagnosis he had about the diseases in him, it corresponded exactly with all of the sensations. Means the diagnosis, the symptoms enlisted about in that advertisement, they were all relevant with whatever sensations he himself was feeling for a long time. That whatever sensations, whatever feelings he was experiencing in his body, those symptoms corresponded, those symptoms were related, those symptoms were exactly similar to those sensations. So this is his generalized experience he is talking about whenever he read any advertisement about any medicine or about any disease. I remember going to the British Museum one day to read up the treatment for some slight ailment of which I had a touch, hay fever, I fancy it was. Now he tells us that he remembers that one day he went to British Museum in order to know if there is any treatment for a minor ailment which he was having, and which he was having in its initial stages, and that ailment, that disease was hay fever. And he says that he wasn't even sure that it was hay fever, as he says, I fancy it was. He imagines that he was having hay fever, though it is not concluded, it is not confirmed, it is not ensured through laboratory or by through some physician that he was actually having this disease. Rather, he was just imagining that he was, or he was just guessing or feeling or sensing that he was having hay fever. And in order to treat, in order to find treatment for that disease, in order to find cure for that disease, he had visited British Museum. He is telling us about this. I got down the book and read all I came to read. And what happened is that he got down the book and he read all of the symptoms, all of the things written in that book, and whatever he came across in that book. And then in an unthinking moment, and in an unthinking moment means in a non-deliberate moment, in simply a second, I idly turned the leaves, and he started turning the leaves over and over, and began to indolently study diseases. And he lazily started to study diseases. Indolently means very deeply, thoroughly. He started reading all the diseases given in that book generally, and that was all general. He didn't focus his attention only to a particular disease he had came for, that is hay fever, as he told that he had come to find cure for hay fever. But instead of looking only on the hay fever, he started reading all of the diseases generally given in that book, and that also in a thorough manner. I forget which was the first December I plunged into. Now he says that I didn't even remember, I didn't ever keep in mind. I didn't even consider that what disease I had actually come for, what disease I had started reading first. Some fearful, devastating scourge, I know. And now he says that some fearful and very destructive kind of disease he was feeling. And before I had glanced half down the list of premonitory symptoms, and he says that before I had completed half of the enlisted symptoms, premonitory means the initial symptoms of any disease. Before he had finished with half of those symptoms, it was borne in upon me, it came to his mind, his mind started confirming, ensuring, or stressing that I had fairly got it, that he had really got that disease. So he started thinking so, even without reading the complete, when he was just finished with half of the symptoms, he started thinking and realizing that he was having all of the symptoms and that disease in his body. I sat for a while frozen with horror, and then, in the listlessness of despair, I again turned over the pages. Realizing that he was having the grotesque, the serious kind of disease in him, what he did is that he sat there frozen with horror. He became terrified, became afraid, and he became fearful, that and he was so fearful that he was just feeling as frozen. He felt as if he was frozen with horror. And then, in the listlessness of despair, and then the despair, the despair, that is the hopelessness which he felt at that time, realizing that he was having those, he again turned over the pages. He again started turning over the pages. I came to typhoid fever, and he came across the disease on the pages, that is typhoid fever. Read the symptoms, he read its symptoms, discovered that I had typhoid fever, must have had it for months without knowing it. And he concluded by reading those symptoms. After reading those symptoms, he came to know, he concluded, he realized that he had that disease too, that is typhoid fever. And he even not only this, rather he realized that he had been suffering from that disease, that typhoid fever, for months, and he even didn't know it. Wondered what else I had got, turned up Saint Vitus's dance. Then he was curious what else diseases he was having in his body. So he turned up towards the other disease, the next disease, that is Saint Vitus's dance. Found as I expected, and he felt, reading that disease, also he felt as he was expecting. He was feeling that he was having that disease, that I had that too. He felt that he was